Good morning, everybody. We are at the end of January already. Wow, 1 month out of 12 already down in 2024. I hope that everybody is being productive and accomplishing what you set out to accomplish at the beginning of the year. Because I'll tell you what, every year for me just keeps getting faster and faster. And I know we're going to zip through 24 before we know it. And we're going to be looking back and we're going to be like, oh man, I wish I had done this or that. And so you want to make sure that you get your goals in sight and you're working towards that every day, right? Incrementally, just a little bit every day, get the progression, not perfection down. All right. Because it's really important that sometimes when we strive to be perfect, we don't accomplish what we're looking to do because it just slows us down. It knocks us off the tracks. And so you just got to keep moving forward. So today I've got a special guest that I have brought on. I have known Dennis for several years now. We met, about 4 years ago back in 2019. And I have a story about that too, Dennis. I'll have to share that with you one day because I sat in a 4-day ninja selling installation. So I had the honor and privilege to be able to spend 4 days with Dennis and his teachings and his trainings. I was just like totally blown away. And I know that we've taught some things from ninja selling over the course of time, just picking out snippets from the book and talked about different ways to be able to run your business like a business. And so Dennis comes to us with wealth of knowledge. And so Dennis is a prominent figure in the field of real estate sales education with over 29 years of experience training, coaching, and speaking to agents and entrepreneurs across the country. He's the owner of Progress Partners Coaching, LLC, a company focused on breakthrough life and business strategies, primarily serving sales professionals, entrepreneurs, and individuals looking to create meaningful and profitable careers or businesses. Giannetti is a certified master ninja selling instructor, a certified go-giver international speaker and coach. He also Tony Robbins certified breakthrough strategies coach. I mean, what credentials? It's incredible. His academic credentials include a master's degree in training and development and a second master's in conflict and negotiation, including certification as a mediator. With experience dating back to 1995 in sales and training industry, Giannetti has been involved in various roles, including selling, managing, coaching, and consulting with individuals and Fortune 500 companies across the United States. In addition to running his coaching and consulting company, he's also writing a parable book on the 5 truths that can triple your business and balance your life. He'll be sharing and masterminding with us today on the 5 truths. So welcome, Dennis. We really appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Always good to be with you, my friend. Like you said, we've known each other a long time. And we were saying earlier that in this world, doing good things, even if it's monthly or if it's whatever is weekly, daily, is an important thing nowadays. I was watching this thing on Netflix the other day about how the mind works, and it was pretty interesting because they were trying to talk about how phones are distracting to people. Like they cause us to be distracted. And this was the interesting part. They said that's not true. They said human beings talk about how they want freedom, and we have it if we want it, but we give it away every single day. And what happens is there's an anxiety that people have about actually having freedom. If I had freedom, what would I do with it? And we always say I would do this and I would do that. And yet we look how we live our lives, and it's the absolute opposite of what we said we would do if we had it, which we actually do. So what happens is the phones actually give us a reason to distract ourselves. Before they existed, what did we do? Just look into space? Did we just, find something that we'd say, oh, let me just focus on this? No, we distract ourselves because it's uncomfortable to have this space of time where there isn't somebody telling us what to do, or there's some sort of focus or purpose in that moment that we're supposed to be doing. We don't allow ourselves to just relax sometimes, just to enjoy, just to smile. How many times a day do you smile without having to listen to a comedian? So it's one of those things where it really woke me up to the truth, which is that we already have everything that we want and need, and that was provided to us by a creator in the first place. So why do we keep giving it away? And what these truths will tell you about today is some of the ways that we actually do give it away, but how we can take it back. And that's important. But before I get into that, and Paul was talking, he kind of reminded me of something. I want to give you something called the CPC. And you're going to want to write this down because it's simple, but it's a very powerful tool. The CPC stands for clarity, priority, and consistency. Clarity, priority, consistency. This is the ultimate success formula, in my opinion. There are other things that are out there that are good too, but I love this one. And here's why. In any area of your life, it could be your health, it could be your wealth, it could be your relationship. If you're just these three things, clear about what you really want, and just one thing at a time, like clear. Think of any area of your life, for example. Play along with me here. Whatever area you want, you don't have to say what it is. Might be relationship, might be health, might be finances. Be clear about what it is you really want. And then once you're clear, give you about 15 seconds maybe to write something down, just pick an area and say, this is something it doesn't matter if it's exactly right now. What's something about your health, your relationship that you're clear you really want in that area of your life? Okay. And then, because we're interacting here, so I'm not lecturing today. We're doing this together. And by the way, if you have questions at any given time and you want to be coached on the spot, I'm all for it. It takes a little bit of courage to do that, but courage is important. You can't be brave if you're not afraid, right? A lot of people are like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that. You can't be brave if you're not afraid. Fear is just your body telling you to step it up or step out. And every choice we make tells the rest of us how we're going to choose to live. So clarity is important. Now, the next thing is priority. So if we're clear about what it is we want, so let's just say I'm in the real estate business and I say, I would like to make this much money per year. Now, I'm not a big advocate of that. And here's why. I think, as Tony Robbins says, we overestimate what we can do in a year and we underestimate what we can do in a decade. We're always thinking what next year is going to be, and we're always judging ourselves by this gap. Well, this is what I need to make this year. And so now there's this gap that's there, and we don't celebrate the gains. You know what? I actually made all 10 of my calls today, or I wrote my 10 notes this week, and we don't celebrate those. We're always deferring feeling good based on there's more to do. And the irony of that is if I'm always celebrating eventually as opposed to consistent, then what I'm doing is I'm not feeding my mind with the juice that it needs to want to keep going, to build the neuroassociations between my actions and my habits that this is part of who I am. So if I only celebrate when I get a closing versus everything I did right during that process, I'm taking away my ability to feed my mind with the positive things. Anybody that exercises knows what I mean, because you could go to a gym for 30 days in a row, and y'all know that if you just take 2 or 3 weeks off, how much you lose in that period of time. At the same time, if I was to say, hey, I want to run a marathon, but I've never run before, and I go, so 26 miles starting today, I'll die. There's no way that's going to happen, right? So we start off with a walk, and then we start off with a longer walk, and then we start jogging on the way back, or whatever the case is. But it's about celebrating those small wins day in and day out. So being very clear about what you want helps you with the priorities. What are the key things that you need to do in order to get the things that you say you're clear about what you want? And it's a lot more simple than we think. So what I'll suggest is with the P, or the priorities, have what Tony calls a 3 to thrive. So here's what I want. I want to lose this much weight in this much time. I want to start going out with my significant other at least 4 times every 3 months. I know that sounds like a little, but you'd be surprised how many people I run into that would actually be a lot. And so, which is crazy. Like, we get married, we say, you take this person for better or worse? And they go, yeah, but nobody ever asks, well, what do you mean by worse? So maybe you should ask that question before you go forward, right? So, because the worst is actually created by ourselves. So we're here and we're clear. And now we have these priorities, this 3 to thrive. What are the 3 things we're going to do to support what it is we say that we want, right? And then comes that last C, though, consistency, performing those 3 things consistently over a period of time, so that it's not just something we're choosing to do, but we've chosen to do it enough that it becomes a habit. Now, James Clear, you might have heard James Clear, Atomic Habits. He was once asked, how long do you have to keep doing things to make it a habit? He had a brilliant answer, because a lot of people answer with a certain number of time that you got to do it, this many days. And that's what I would do too when people ask me. And then I heard his answer. And he said, forever. And they go, what do you mean forever? He goes, because once you stop it, it's no longer a habit. That was a mic drop moment when I heard him. I'm like, it's so simple. Like, oh, I've created this habit. And it's like, when's the last time you did it? Like 3 months ago. It is no longer a habit.
Can you
And so
repeat that one more time?
habits that matter have to be consistent. Did someone say something? Are we
Yes.
cool?
Could you repeat that phrase one more time, please?
With the habits?
Yes.
Yeah. So basically what he said was, once you stop it, it's no longer a habit. So if I go 3 months of doing something, but then I stop for a month, it's in my DNA, but it's no longer a habit because I've stopped it. The mind literally changes direction as fast as you stop taking action. And that's what's kind of crazy when you think about it, because they have to be in sync to be successful. So when I say, like, how many of you, for example, have your alarms on your phones? Raise your hand if you have your alarms on your phones. Shocker, right? It makes sense. Like alarm clock companies must be depressed. Like we're out of business, right? Here's the problem though. It's not that it's on your phones. How many people set more than one alarm on your phone in the morning, just in case you hit the snooze button? So just one thing with that real quick. What we're telling ourselves when we hit the snooze button is that whatever this day has isn't as important as getting more sleep. And often the reason we want to have more sleep is because we didn't get to sleep comfortably the night before. And the reason we get to sleep comfortably the night before, maybe we were up a little later, we were looking on our phone, whatever it was, is because we didn't get what we wanted out of the day that we just had. Success is going to sleep at night with your mind at peace, and your mind can never be at peace at night if the day is left in pieces that you said you were going to do and didn't accomplish, right? Have you ever had days where you said, here's what I'm going to do today, and then you didn't, and then you thought about it later on, and you think, well, now look at all the stuff that I have to do tomorrow. So you have to, and by the way, Kevin, thank you for being the honest one about that, because nobody else raised their hand. You know that's not true, but right? So you got to bookend these things where it's like, okay, at night, an hour before I go to bed, phone's gone, it's off. And you're going to write down anything that's on your mind that is bothering you and put it away so your mind knows that it's covered. And so then what happens is in the morning, when you get up, you're going to hit your alarm button when it goes off. But here's the difference. You're not going to have it by your bed. You're going to have it in your master bathroom. So when the alarm goes off, you get up. Let me repeat that. When the alarm goes off, you get up. And then you go to your bathroom. Right now, people are going, oh man, this sounds great. We want to make all kinds of money and have all kinds of success, but getting up into our master bed. Look, you do it in the middle of the night when you got to pee anyway. Just get up, you shut off the alarm, and on your mirror are the three most important things that you're going to do this morning. And it hits your head, boom, like that. These are habits of success that you have to create an environment to be successful for. They're not promises you make to yourself. They're actions that you take to enforce the promises that you make to yourself. So when you create an environment like that, you're going to be much more successful. I hope that makes sense. So be clear about what you want, identify what those priorities are, and then be consistent. And that's it. That is just, and I'm going to give you these truths in a minute too, because these are things that can derail you or keep you on track. So when you have that mindset and that's how you follow, you'll be successful in anything. The most successful people in any area of their field aren't just genetically gifted or beyond intelligence of all other people. Success for most people in the world doesn't come because of their high intelligence or their natural gifts. It helps. It comes up because they're clear about what they want, they set their priorities, and they're consistent in achieving them. Period. The end. Now, quick, any questions about that before I get into some of these truths, which could either enhance or derail this CPC?
I rely too much on Alexa, which is just as bad because you can just yell, Alexa, snooze.
Yes, thank you for admitting that. That's true. Like Alexa, time to wake up. You're like, Alexa, shut the hell up. Right. And so don't tell me what to do, machine, and that's the thing. And I get nervous about machines too. Like I'm not like all Terminator nervous, but Chat GPT AI are wonderful tools if you use them right. I just don't want people to forget, instead of artificial intelligence, actual intelligence is a good thing too. So we want to make sure that we're not getting lazy using things that we could be doing ourselves. Does that make sense? And that's the key, particularly when it comes to creating things more than anything else. But I've used both, and I will tell you, like I like Chat GPT to help me write things out when I'm stuck. And then it gives me some guidance and some direction where to go. So it kind of gets me past the hump. So that's a great way that I use it, for example. Just don't depend on it as much. Does that make sense? Like we can go on MLS, for example, in real estate and look and find out what's available. But that's not the same as taking tours of those homes and previews of those homes and knowing what the home actually looks like from the inside out. Really knowing your market. You follow? That's a big difference. It's extra work, but the extra work in the beginning makes you the expert, which makes it easier as you go along. So if people are saying, well, I'm looking at these houses, these houses, these houses, we hear it all the time, buyers are liars. They just haven't had the opportunity to understand what their truth is yet. That's our job to help them do that. If they're not sure after 7 houses, it's not their fault, it's ours. We have to take responsibility to know that if they're not clear walking out of that conference room, they're going to be confused when they get into the areas. So our job is when they say, I'm looking for an open floor plan, to say, well, tell me about that. What does an open floor plan look like to you when you walk in? This is their clarity, priority, consistency, right? Not just ours, but theirs. So what are these truths then that could really derail this? And I hope we can have an exchange on this. The first one is an interesting one. The first one is a temporary situation doesn't determine your permanent condition. Your temporary situation doesn't determine your permanent condition. This is a big one. I want you to go ahead and write that down and think about what it means to you while you're writing that down. And then I want to see if you have any questions about it, and I can elaborate a little if I need. But this is a big one. Your temporary situation doesn't determine your permanent condition. I'm waiting just to see, I'm seeing everybody's writing, so that's why I'm waiting for that. No rush. temporary situation doesn't determine your permanent condition. And what's interesting about this one is this is the one that causes most unnecessary anxiety with people. One of the things Tony Robbins talks about is that one of the 6 human needs is certainty, right? People want to be certain that they can predict or rely on the fact that if X happens, then Y is going to happen. And a predictable life is a certain life, but a predictable life is not a comfortable life. And people go, why not? Why isn't predictability comfortable? Because a predictable life gives you certainty to offset your anxiety, but a comfortable life is not when you're certain all the time, but when you're comfortable with whatever happens, because you know that you can handle it. And you can't grow in certainty. You can exist in certainty. You can't grow in certainty. So what are these situations? I'll give you a couple examples in real estate and then maybe one other. Let's say you have a closing coming up. And oh no, something goes wrong and it looks like it's a big deal. And when I was managing offices, a lot of the agents would come to me, I'm losing this deal. And I'm like, and the buyer will have nowhere to go and the seller's, dying to sell their house. And I mean, everybody has something at stake. And it's hard in our business, particularly because if we have people in our life that say, why don't you get a real job? And you know what I've always told them when they've said that to me? Because people have said that to me when I was selling. I said, there's nothing more real than not getting paid unless you do your job. That's the truth. We don't get paid unless we do our job. That's the real, not getting paid no matter what you do. And so we are on the steps of truly being entrepreneurs to that regard. But if we start freaking out because you lost a listing or you lost a deal or you've gone 30 days and absolutely nothing's happening, then that registers in your mind, which then affects your emotions and that'll affect your decisions on whether to act or not. And you start questioning yourself. Man, it's been like 75 days and nothing's happened. Yeah, no, I don't have any buyers, any sellers. Let's go back over those 75 days and let's look at your CPC. What were you clear about? I wanted to create opportunities for myself. What were your priorities? Well, I had to go grocery shopping and then I had your priorities, if you want to create opportunities for yourself, is to be consistent on what you're doing to build relationships and market people. By the way, here's a quick little quote for you. It's very fast. It really makes sense. Marketing creates awareness. Relationships create business. Marketing creates awareness. Instead of, because I mean, and I'm being facetious, but I've been in the business for a long time. And I don't mean this disrespectfully because I was taught the same thing, but I just tweak things. So if Paul and I are having lunch and, I'm a realtor and he's a friend and and it was a great lunch. And then I look at Paul and I go after lunch, I go, by the way, Paul, before we go, do you know anybody that wants to buy or sell real estate? And Paul looks at me and goes, because this is what happens, right? He goes, I'm being facetious again. He goes, Dennis, I've been trying to eat my ham and cheese sandwich this entire hour, wanting to stop at any given time to let you know that I have 3 clients for you. If you have good marketing and they're aware you're in the business, and then you're building relationships through what Ninja calls forward, family, occupation, recreation, dreams. You don't call people up, by the way, and I say, hey, Valerie, it's Dennis. How's your dream? You don't do that one. That one we don't do. That freaks them out. But dream is like their kids going to college or they're going to, maybe sell their house and move to another state that they've always wanted to be. So we have to understand that this temporary situation that's not going our way, it doesn't determine our permanent condition, but our fear and anxiety that comes from a situation not going our way can make it last longer than it needs to. So if you haven't already, write something down as an example of when you were in a temporary situation, but it's called a reference point. If I can associate one of my experiences to that truth, then I understand the truth. And when you're done, I want to see if people have questions or we can do, like I said, spot coaching. Very quick with coaching. Within minutes, if you give me something, I swear to you, we can get it resolved. So I know it sounds like a big promise, but I know I can do it. If you're honest, it'll work. Yes, sir. Kevin, take yourself off mute. Let's hear you.
You baited me, so I'm taking the jump.
Awesome. Thank you, brother.
Of course, we all want to be these successful realtors. And over a period of time, my broker talks about getting ready the night before, getting your clothes out, things like this, the habits before,
Yeah.
And so I progressively have been doing that. I also created a time block of the 24 hours that we each have in our day. And I found out I have no time for anybody. So I had to back it down. Then I found out in order for me to be successful this morning at 8 o'clock, I've got to start yesterday. So I began to think, well, let's look at sleep. I'm in my 50s now. Sleep, all the free money, right? Sleep, walking, food, exercise, etc. Created these new habits, okay?
Yep.
Got them time blocked. I got them in color, in Sharpie colors as well.
Yeah.
Well, it's been going really good for a couple of weeks. And then
Yeah.
I got a listing.
Yeah.
Personal time, I wanted to go to the RV show. I like looking at the RVs. That was 5 hours. I could have been doing something with real estate.
Yep.
Then a family member wanted to meet up. I could have been doing something with real estate, and it was really
Yeah.
tough to break that. Then so another mastermind group I'm in wanted to get together. I've been ignoring them for a year, so I took the time. All of
Yeah.
a sudden, it's Wednesday before this listing's going to launch. The photographs came in. The photographs weren't great. Disappointed. I'm up getting this listing prepped to launch it at 4:30 in the morning on Thursday.
Mhm.
No sleep. Everything's completely off. Go through the open houses this weekend. We got some contracts going on. And so today is laundry day. I began to reset the entire thing.
Yeah.
And it's been difficult, but having a time block has been beneficial. And I do recognize that I'll get back on track. But prior to that, without studying and kind of looking deep into myself, what I want to accomplish, I would never have been. I would have taken on a new habit of the old habits. The old habits
Yeah.
would have crept back in quickly.
Yeah. The challenge with the time block is when you put too many things on the block, it actually blocks your priorities. So the key is to remember that CPC. You noted a lot of things that come up, and so they will. The key here is in the things, particularly like with real estate, you have to have processes. So for example, like when you have a buyer, what's that process? When you have a seller, what's that process? And a lot of times what Ninja Selling will say is that, if you spend more time with a buyer or a seller in the beginning, particularly a buyer more than a seller, it takes less time overall working with them because they're clear. When you can get the CPC for your buyer or seller because you have yours, things go faster and quicker. We have to, and this is what I would ask Kevin, how that all that structure that you're saying is happening and how it kind of gets disruptive and there's a lot of stuff to do. How long in your life would you say that's been going on?
What's that?
Just having a lot to do and there's constantly stuff happening.
Pretty much forever. This is the first time I've actually began to time block. And I
Yeah.
think it's one of the things that really destroys a realtor's ambition in this business. Time blocking. I know Paul and we've talked about the CRM, how super important it is, but industry's kind of doing a disservice to agents by not doing some of these things that need to be CE classes, basically.
Yeah.
Organization skills are the paramount. You can't take care of a customer unless you've done all this back office stuff first, including your own sleep, your own nutrition, your own health to the best of your abilities.
So this is where that CPC comes in. You're 100% right. There's just so much that we feel like we need to do as real estate agents. And the truth is, that's why if we can break it down, for example, if I say marketing creates awareness, I just need to have marketing that goes out there. Relationships create business. I just need to know who are the 10 or 15 people I'm going to call this week. Who am I going to write notes to? Then they're much easier to check off. So the key with your lead generation isn't how many people you talk to. It's how many people you commit each week to touch, right? So if I just say I'm gonna talk to 10 people on the phone, write 5 people notes and have lunch with one, but I'm just consistent with that, then it stacks over time, right? So you don't have to have these crazy numbers. I'm not a big fan or an advocate, no disrespect to anybody who does it, because sometimes it works for people, of doing cold calls. I mean, it's honestly, why? It's like, well, I like talking to strangers because you just never know if they're going to buy or sell real estate. What do we learn as kids? Don't talk to strangers. When did you forget that? So the idea is like, why if we can't? Yeah, the idea is that your chances of getting somebody to refer you is 50 to 1 on your sphere. Those are good numbers, because you know what cold calls could be? Cold calls could be at best 500 to 1, right? Door knocking's 100 to 1. I know in the summer you're thinking, but that's such a great thing to do, is walk around in the summer in Florida and door knock. No, right? So the idea was, and I had a friend who did this. He literally was on Facebook videoing himself in a suit with a vest in August in Fort Lauderdale, saying, I'm working really hard, going around. He's sweating. The sweat's just everywhere. It's like it rained on him. And I'm like, how does that in any way help people believe that you're successful if you're in the middle of August in Florida, at South Florida, in a 3-piece suit, sweating and telling people I'm knocking on doors? I'm not saying door knocking works or doesn't work. I'm just saying statistically, you have a smaller chance. So if you're trying to save time, and when it works. So what are the things that you love to do, Kevin, when it comes to getting yourself connected to other people? And what we try to say and hope that is your answer is just talking to other people that I know, like and trust. As Bob Berg says, when all else is equal with other realtors and the average person knows 12 other realtors, they're going to choose the ones they know, like, and trust. And they'll refer to the ones they know, like, and trust. But why would they know, like, and trust you over the other realtors? It isn't because of your branding. Branding is what people say about you when you're not in the room based on their experience of you. What you say about yourself, they don't pay attention to because they see it from 12 other realtors. You follow? But I put out all this stuff. Branding is an experience. People remember what you do for them. They never forget how you make them feel. You want to make them feel good in a world where people feel isolated? You call them up and how's your family? How's work going? These are simple things. The real estate industry, to your point, is always trying to sell you things that are like the latest and greatest things. Latest and greatest doesn't work compared to the stuff that worked 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. The people that came way before us were doing this before any of this other stuff was invented. So to my point to you, Kevin, is this: you got to narrow down what really matters to you. What are the three key most important areas of your life? And what are the CPCs for those three areas? Because if you can nail that down, not only are you going to be more productive, you're going to have peace. But right now, it sounds like you're bouncing like a pinball. You're going from one thing to the next. And that's not the kind of way you want to live, because you're better than that. And you know you are. You have the capacity to handle that kind of structure, but you don't deserve that kind of structure. You deserve one where you can go to sleep at peace at night, wake up at peace in the morning, have your routine ready to go. And it's not, I agree with him. I don't time block because then I become a slave to time. My whole philosophy is build a life you don't need a vacation from, because a vacation should be a celebration, not an escape. If you need a vacation, you're running your life wrong. If I need to get away from my life, it's because I'm not running. It's not because that's going to help me. Oh, in 2 weeks, I'm going to make up for the 50 that I working my butt off. Because we, in this world, we kind of sit there and go grind, 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 grind. It's not the grind. In the gym, it's the grind. Okay. Because I know, like I do a lot of martial arts, because I'm going to say it's about the gratitude, not the grind. But when someone hits me in a martial arts class, I'm not very grateful on that one. Great. I should be, because like, oh, maybe I should put my hands up. But the point is, we can't get caught up in the grind all the time. We overvalue that, because you have to have, and the problem is we actually take a lot of pride in it. I worked my ass off this week. And what if someone else said, yeah, I got the same results and I took 20 hours off? And I'm not just saying this, I lived this. Last year, I worked, I don't know, maybe 20 weeks. And let's just say I made good money. I don't like to say what it is, but I did well, right? Because when your value goes up over time, you make more per hour, you make more per month, you make more per quarter, you make more per year. You don't have to work 52 weeks in a year. Tony Robbins said it best: of all the species in the world, humans are the only ones that can depress themselves with their own thoughts. And I want you to think about that. Like, all the other animals are living in the moment. We're living in a moment we're trying to create later, as opposed to now. It makes no sense. This is the way I want my life to be. I want to be peaceful. I want to be happy. I want to be relaxed. Well, how are you showing up today? Kevin's scenario is very important to all of us, because if we're bouncing all over the place and we're stressed out all the time, you're not only changing your future to live that way consistently, but you might be shortening your life, because stress is one of the killers more than anything else of almost anybody. And what do we do when we're stressed? Do we go, ooh, I'm feeling really stressed, I'm going to go eat some carrots and some vegetables and some healthy food? Oh, no. We get the comfort food, which, by the way, was created to make you feel that way so that you buy more of it, because it's a profit in the food industry that's crazy. Their whole thing is get you moving, get you spending, get you wanting more, eat the junk food so you can go later on and get pills from the doctor to help you pretend that your health is there, but it just takes away some of the symptoms that it's not. We have to be better about that when you're in situations like Kevin is in, or anything like that. So you have to choose what is most important to you, Kevin. So if I was to ask you real quick before I go to the second truth, what's right off the top of your head, and you guys go along with this too, write it down. What's the most important thing to you, Kevin, out of anything? If you could only have one thing in your life, what would it be?
You can't narrow it down to just one thing.
But if you had to, what would you do?
You can't, because I'm living a realistic life, to be honest with you. And there's so many things that are important. My air, my water, my family, my grandson, those things there.
Yes, thank you for answering. But that's important, because see, there's a distinction. What he just did there, he said what was most important. You're right, those are more than one thing, but that could be family. Of course, being healthy, but your life that's all over the place otherwise is because if you want to have more peace and less crazy, you got to narrow it down to the top three things. There's an old saying, fill your cup first, what spills over is for everybody else. Because if you can't fill your cup first, then you're always giving somebody a discounted version of yourself, and they deserve better, and so do you. So when I start figuring out and here's a way to do it too, real quick, before I go to the second truth. Think, what are your three most important things this month you want to accomplish? And then weekly, what are the three most important things that week you can do to work towards those three most important things? And again, it's always a work in progress. It's not about check, check, check. It's about forward, forward, forward. I hope that makes sense. But Processes will help you too in your real estate business. You know, here's what I do with the buyer. Here's what I do with the seller. Here's what I do when I have a listing. My lead generation is just going to be X, Y, and Z, and that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to let it work itself. And what you guys have to really catch on to is your best source of any business are referrals. Your referrals close ratio is 3-2. I mean, there's no better way to get business than referrals, but I don't get that many referrals. Well, how are you building your relationships? Are you creating awareness through marketing? So that's a big part of it. If you just have twice a month that you send marketing to your closest sphere and you're calling them once a month on a forward call, you're going to get referrals. Bottom line. A lot of people do internet leads, right? How many of you have done internet leads before? Yeah. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Depends. Those who do make them work their butts off to make them. There were these guys, they were talking about internet leads and they were saying that Zillow Instant Offer calls 84 homes and they try to buy their homes and they get, I think 83 say no. So only one. You think, oh, that's bad. No, they're happy about that because they take the 83 that said no. And guess who do you think they sell them to? Those leads to us. So they're literally selling leads to people that are already in the area that you live because they're the ones that are contacting those other people and we're not. It's that simple. So all we have to do is contact our sphere and then their sphere becomes our sphere. So wherever you are that you feel you're stuck, you're not. It's not your permanent condition, but we have to get clear, know our priorities and be consistent and just don't be so hard on ourselves. Start with 3 things that matter. Once you start give yourself 3 months, 90 days to start working on the 3 things that matter the most. You'll still have time for some of the other stuff. That's another thing Tony says. You have to know your musts. If you don't know your musts, then you're going to do your shoulds. And when you're always doing your shoulds, you're shoulding all over yourself. And we don't want to do that. Our musts are what matter. Our shoulds, that's out in the clouds. Shoulds are what we say we're going to do and we know we're not going to do them now. And they happen later and then they stack up and then we give up our musts because we're trying to catch up with our shoulds. So and what he did it there is very important at the end. He says, my life's all full of all this stuff for all of us, but we have to be able to pick out the things that matter most to us. And that's what you did when you said here, the things that matter most to me. So that's your number 1. All you need to do is figure out what's your number 2 and what's your number 3. And that's where you give 80% of your time. The other 20% could be for the things that are lesser important. You've all heard of the 80-20 rule, right? But we always do it in inverse. Oh, well, 80% of go to the money goes to 20% of the agents. You know why? Because the 80% of the money that goes to 20% of the agents, that 20% know these truths. And they're very clear about what they want. They know what the priorities are and they're consistent in going after it. Anybody here go to a gym by chance? Yep. Do you ever notice there are some people there, they might be on this call here, that look great? They weren't born that way. They work for it. You'll go to that gym. I guarantee if there's 7 days in a week, they'll be there 4 or 5 of them, right? And like, oh my God, they live in the gym. No, they don't. They visit consistently and then they go and live their life. Unless they're in competition, they'll be there for 2 or 3 hours. But the thing is, it's like that anywhere else. Because I want to be healthy, pass me the Oreos, and I'm going to skip the gym today. Doesn't work that way.
And
right?
when they
Yes.
skip the gym,
Is it
and
L or
when
Ellie?
it's both.
Okay.
And when you skip the gym, you get a text message, where you at? Especially the day when you give up.
That's a good gym right there. Where are you? We haven't seen you. So it's like that anywhere. Hopefully that's helpful. And thank you, Kevin, for being that first person that steps up. And Kevin, I've been where you are at. That's why I'm saying I understand where you're coming from. And there are days even today with all my knowledge of what I'm doing, I can tell you, I'm like, I just feel overwhelmed with so many things. And then I remind myself, you might want to write this down. I remind myself, overwhelm isn't having too much to do. It's not being clear about the next most important thing to do. And that's important, right? Because I remind myself, do I have too much to do or am I forgetting what's the most important thing to do? And then what happens is I just go to that next most important thing and I get it done. And the most important thing that's in my heart and mind to do or my business is done. That takes a huge relief off. And if I could just do the 3 most important things this week, it takes a big relief off. The pressure we feel with to-do lists is because to-do lists never end. But instead of having a to-do list, you had a to-be list. Do these things that I'm going to do contribute to who I want to be? Now you're finding what really matters to you. Because if what you're doing doesn't contribute to who you want to be, what's the point? And you guys might say, well, Dennis, I have to clean the bathroom. That has nothing to do with who I want to be. Technically, it does. You don't want to be a messy, sloppy person. But at the end of the day, it's not as important as the other things on your to-be list. And that's critical for us. And so last thing, and then the next truth. What are the other things that I think it was Tony who said, you've all heard the expression, I'm going to say a little bad word, does a bear shit in the woods? And we know, but you know what a bear doesn't do? It doesn't go, oh man, I'm late for this, or I've got these things to do. They're in the moment. They're in the present. You guys are going, yeah, but this is what happened to me in the past, or this is what I want my future to be. And by focusing on your past and your future, you're killing the moment. Your future is the present that hasn't happened yet. What you do now determines your future. What happened to you before determines how you might think in the moment, but you can change at any moment and then change your future right now in the present. But again, we're the creatures that are always looking back to what happened to us or what we want to happen to us and not what's happening to us now, which we actually are in control of most of the time. So that brings us to truth number 2. And thanks again, Kevin, for your stepping up. This one is huge in the real estate industry and any part of your life. Number 2, breaking a commitment or promise to yourself is worse than never having made it at all. Breaking a commitment or promise to yourself is worse than never having made it at all. And this is going to back to why having a lot to do can actually hurt us more. And I'll get to that in a second. I'm seeing you writing this down. Breaking a commitment or promise to yourself is worse than never having made it at all. So as a kind of echo question, have you ever done this before? Have you ever made a commitment or promise to yourself that you're going to do this, or you're going to do that, and then you didn't? Raise your hand if that's ever happened. All you have to do is be human to raise your hand here, because we all do this, right? So here's why it's dangerous, though, and why it's worse than never having made it. When I promise myself I'm going to make my 10 calls, go to the gym 3 times, whatever the case is, and I don't, your mind takes note of that. The way the mind works is you have neuroassociations based on experience. Most of the time, our mind is looking to avoid pain rather than pursue pleasure. That's why procrastination is what it is. Procrastination is a form of pain. In other words, when we procrastinate, we're putting off things that we don't really want to do, or here's what's worse, that we're afraid that if we do them and it doesn't work, then we're a failure. So we put things off, we put things off, we put things off, and that goes into the mind. I said I'm going to do this, this, and this, but I don't do it. The mind goes, okay, that means it's okay to fail. That means it's okay to not be committed. That means it's okay to walk away. That's what happens in your mind. It registers every time you say you're going to do something that you don't, that you did that. You think nobody knows, you know. And then the brain sees it again and again and again. And after a while, it stops making promises that it can't keep. Or you keep making promises that you break on yourself, but you don't feel worthy of anything that's on the other side of doing those promises, because you've shown yourself already that they're not worth it, or that you're not worth it. And you know better, but that's the subtle thing that happens. So I want you to think about promise in your business, your life, to your relationship that you've had, that you made, that you didn't keep, or maybe one that you keep promising and you don't deliver on. We have those too sometimes. Planet Fitness knows this. That's why it's $10 a month to join in January, because they know half the people will be gone by March or April, but no one's going to stop their membership at Planet Fitness for $10. You might have had some Mexican food and have to really go to the bathroom. And then you're like, oh, there's Planet Fitness and I'm going to use the bathroom because I have a membership. You'll keep it for that $10 alone. But for $10, you're not going anywhere. They know it, but they know you're also not coming in as often, because about 20% of the people that get gym memberships show up consistently. So what's a promise that you've broken to yourself? And think to yourself as best you can, why? Why did you break that promise? Was it just a habit? Was it you didn't really want it? Was the result didn't matter to you? I saw Kevin, then he disappeared. Okay, there he is. Okay. So who would like to share a promise that they've broken? Again, it's not to someone else necessarily, but to yourself. Who said they were going to do something this week, this month?
Yeah. So Dennis, I'm just
Yes,
like
sir.
anybody else here. I know that just because I'm the teacher, trainer, mentor, all that sort of stuff, I have all these titles. I struggle just like anybody else doing the things that I should be doing every day, like making my calls. I come up with every excuse in the book, and I recognize it. I'm aware of it. And some days I can overcome that and make my calls. And other days it's like, oh, I get that overwhelmed. Well, I got all these other things to do. And so I go off on those other things. So I break promise to myself all the time like that.
And for people who have seen the movie Up, for those who have kids, what he's really articulating here is the squirrel syndrome, right? So I don't know if you remember, if you've seen that movie and the dog's like that squirrel, and we do, that's us. How many times have we said we were going to go somewhere or do something, and then we just allowed anything to pull us away? You see my point? When you're on the boat and you want to sail to the island that has all the dreams that you ever wanted to, you can't let the fact that the wind blows in a different direction take you off course. And what's even crazier is that we actually try to sail to this island of our dreams with the anchor in the water. That's our past, holding us back from whatever it is that we say that we want. So the wind's blowing this way and the anchor's in the water. We're like, why can't I ever get what I want? Pull up the damn anchor, hit the sail where you need to go, take advantage of the wind, and you're going to be on your way. The problem with people who want perfect is they don't understand that perfect is a moment. That's why it's perfect. For the people that, for example, might celebrate Christmas and they're hosting Christmas this year, and everything's got to be a certain way so that they can feel like they did when they were a kid again, because that's the best time to experience that particular holiday. But you're never going to feel like that again, because you're not a kid. You're taking on all these responsibilities, and you get disappointed when maybe people didn't say your food was great, or the kids didn't really like the gifts as much as you thought they would. We set ourselves up for failure with expectations we have of other people, and then we sit down on the expectations that we have for ourselves. This is what I want other people to feel around me because of me. But when it comes to me, I'm going to kind of say, well, I made that promise, but or this situation is bad, but. It's not how fast you get there. It's that you, as Paul said, it's making the progress. And so that's the problem. And so, a lot of people, I think they confuse sometimes understanding this stuff with actually implementing it. That's the crazy part. They go, okay, I get it. So a temporary situation doesn't determine your permanent condition. So when things happen, don't freak out. No, that's good. Cognitively, we get it, but prove it. Prove that that makes sense to you by not doing that anymore. Or when we say breaking a commitment to yourself is worse than never having made it at all. Don't make commitments that you aren't going to keep to yourself. Never mind. Well, yeah, but I can't do that with other people. If I say I'm going to do that to someone, then I'm going to follow through on my commitment to them. Why are they more important than you? If you can't keep them to yourself, how are you going to keep them with other people? Well, because I have to with them. You don't want to have a life full of have to. I have to do this. I have to do that. I have to pick up the kids today. I have to go to the gym. No, you get to pick up the kids. You get to go to the gym. That's part of what freedom actually is. And when you don't choose to enact that for the better version of yourself, you're going to have a life that's less than you deserve. And here's the funny thing before I get to the last and third truth, there's more truths than three, but I want to make sure I hit at least three. And that's this, is that when we hear this stuff, we don't realize a lot of times that the difference between those who are most successful and not is in your mind, because your mind controls everything. And like, yeah, no mindset, I get it. And it's positive thinking. No, it's not positive thinking. It's just actually thinking, right? Whether it's positive or negative, our ability to think beyond each of those from a frame of labeling them to the truth of what they mean to us is what matters. And so when we start saying, oh no, this is happening and the sky is falling, Chicken Little syndrome, or, well, I don't have to do these things that I said I was going to do. We don't really notice those things because in the moment they seem small, but over 1,000 moments, they change who we are. Right? There's not a one of you here right now that can have anything that you want in your health, in your relationship, in your business, or in your life. If you don't have it, it's because you don't want it enough, right? People say, no, that's not true. Here come the reasons. Reasons don't bring results. There might be some legitimate reasons for people, and I realize that, so I don't want to say it's always that way, but 80% of the time, let's say that it is. That brings us to truth number 3. And this is important because this is kind of an underlying truth for the other two. Acting based on how we feel in the moment is a temporary high. Acting on what you value is a guaranteed commitment. Acting based on what you feel in the moment is a temporary high. Acting on what you value is a guaranteed commitment. And what you want to ask yourselves when you get off of here today is, what do you really value in your business, in your relationship, in your life, in your health, with your children, whatever it is? And one of the things I do on a daily basis, I talk about, I have an app and I do these virtues every day. What are the key virtues? And in personal development, just to narrow this down for you, they say it really comes down to 3 things. Would you like to know what they are? I'm just trying to get some movement out of you, so I don't think I'm just looking at people that are just, yeah, right? Right? Be excited. Like, this is good stuff, right? But no, this isn't good. This is crap. I want to know how to get more listings. Well, yeah, you're on the wrong thing then, right? Because that's going to help you when you get this stuff down. It works together. So here are the 3 things it comes down to in personal development. Ready? 3 things: energy, work, love. Those are the 3 most important areas of our life. Determine which of those 3 you think are the most important. Just which one is the most important. And you can either write it in the chat room or you can volunteer, to which we'll see how that goes, where someone says, here's what I think. And it doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. I just want someone to tell me, or I want to see it in the chat room. Energy, work, and love. Which is the most important one?
I think energy.
Okay, Paul's
Everything
got energy.
comes from energy.
Good. And we got energy there. We got love. Who else? Let me get one more at least, time permitting here. All right, we got love. All right, so we got energy, love, and love. And for the rest of you, you don't care. So Paul is the winner. It's energy. Here's why. Have you ever been in a relationship and you love the other person, but you just were having a bad day? Your energy was off and you just didn't want to hear it. Have you ever been to work and things were going the wrong way and just depleted you, made you feel like crap, or you just didn't want to be there anymore? And you decided to go get a big old lunch and then call it a day? Energy is the precursor for you to take the power that you have inside out and bring it to the other 2 areas that really matter. In the personal development world, which is what I'm in, they try to tell you all the stuff about everything, but it really comes down to, how do you do with your energy every day? How do you deal with your work and with your love every day? Those are 3 most important things. There you go, right? And so energy comes down to diet, exercise, and then the 2 S's, stress and sleep. How do you handle your stress? How do you handle your sleep, right? Remember, the successful person is the one who can go to bed at night with their mind at peace, not in pieces. If you're going to bed at night and your mind's in pieces, you did not have a successful day. You didn't have a successful day, not because you didn't work hard, but because you didn't control the day. Well, I can't control other people. We actually can. If anything, our society proves we can control other people, whether they know it or not. So the problem is, to truly be free and to truly be happy, how do you control your day, yourself, your week, your month, your year, your future? Depends on knowing these truths. It's a really big deal. So I'll say one more thing. And if you have any questions, I don't mind staying for questions, or you can certainly email me with questions. No big deal. I'm not traveling till the middle of February. So I have time to answer questions on email if you want. And I'm not selling you anything, just so you guys know. I don't have time for that. Here's an interesting thought for you. Okay. And I want you to really think about this. I don't want you to think about your past, but I want you to think about right now. And I want you to think about maybe it's 15, 20, 25, 30, 40 years from now. And you're that version of yourself 20, 30, 40 years from now, right? Or whenever it is that you think might be your last days. And I want you, as that person, 20, 30, 40 years from now, and what your last days are, imagining yourself in a bed and tired and all that kind of stuff because these are your last days. And the version of yourself that is the best version of yourself walks through the door. Now, the version of yourself that's in that bed 20, 30, 40 years from now is the same one that you have now and doesn't change a thing from this point on. The best version of yourself, the one that walks in the door, is the one that doesn't live in the past, focuses on their present, has processes, systems, follows these truths, et cetera, has a CPC. How would that best version of yourself feel when they saw what really happened to you? Does that make sense? There's an old saying, you only live as long as the last person who remembers you. So the impact that we have on others is critical to who we are when we leave this world. But I give you one last thing, and that's this, that the definition of hell is on the day that you die, you meet the person you could have been. Now, we don't know when we're going to die. But every day that we are alive, we get to determine who that person's going to be. And every day you choose a person that isn't your best self, because you never become your best self, you always are or you're not. Then when that time comes and you're no longer here, you can live a life with a legacy, you can live a life with regret, or you could be somewhere in the middle. But it's always our choice. That's the most beautiful thing about ourselves being created and given the freedom that we have as an individual and a human being, is that we get to make that choice. So in this industry, stop worrying about the quantity and stop worrying about the quality, because quality brings quantity a lot more than the other way around. The quantity that we think brings quality is the more money we make, the more things we can have. And there's truth to that. But if you define yourself for what you have, then you lose yourself when it's no longer there. But if you define yourself by who you are, not only do you matter more to yourself, but to other people as well, right? And by the way, when you matter to other people, they send you referrals, 3-to-2 ratio, good thing. Any questions before I go? And just, Paul, I want to say to you now, and to I thank you for having me. If they have any questions, I can quickly answer them now, but I really appreciate any chance I have to get in front of people, good people. And if one little thing resonated today, good, because it takes good people to change the world. And the world's not full of people who feel so good right now. So every little bit matters. And people go, what does that mean? When I go to Publix and I go to the grocery store, how many of you have been there? And then you get to the register and they go, did you find everything you need today? It's the most rhetorical damn question I've ever heard. No, I didn't, but I thought I'd come to the register not having everything I need so that you could remind me, and then I get out of line and go get it. That's a sarcastic version, right? I say, yes, I did. Thank you so much for asking. When I wanted to say, the question is that, So crap, I didn't get my banana. So the idea is whether it's that or whether I'm at the UPS store to check my mailbox and someone I can see with a box that's 14 feet away needs to open the door and they can't because they're holding it with both their arms, I will sit there and wait and hold that for them. Or that they have a kid that's unruly and they're behind me in line. I'm like, hey, you go ahead, because I know they got to get out of there as quick as they can without getting all that frustrated. Kind deeds and actions make us better people. When we're only thinking of ourselves, we'll always be comparing ourselves to others. So be the change you want to see in the world, and the world will change around you and for you. You have my email if you need. Any last questions before I head out and do my thing? Yes, sir. Brian?
Hey, Dennis, good to meet you. And I didn't get to mention any of this, but I don't know if they said, so I'm a mortgage broker. I'm actually a broker owner. And thank you, Paul, for having Dennis come on. In the last 30 days, I've had 5 team members from my team, for one reason or another, actually leave the team, and definitely felt the stress and the pressure and thinking, not going to sleep in peace is not peace, thinking that I was doing something wrong, nothing on me. So I just want to say thank you, because this helped give me some clarity and some peace this morning. So thank you for that.
No, my pleasure. And you're absolutely right. Like we don't have the power over what's going on in other people's minds, hearts, and souls. And whether you're a mortgage broker or a realtor, this business is hard, right? But the trick is we don't need to make it harder on ourselves. If we know our CPC, if we know our truths, if we're just following those principles, it gets a lot easier, right? And don't judge yourself by how much you made in your bank account. Judge yourself by how much impact you made on that one client. Like people say, oh my God, I got a $3 million listing. I don't care if it's 3 million or 100,000. There are people you're dealing with, and you make an impact with that person. People say, well, what's $100,000? Maybe they work for a company where the guy that owns the company is a multimillionaire, if you want to look at it that way. right? Which is fine. Everybody matters because how you treat, just like yourself, how you do anything is how you'll do everything. How you treat anybody is how you'll treat everybody. Oh no, I would treat $1 million client much differently than a $100,000 client. You're not, because they're both numbers to you then. So you're not treating them based on who they are. They're based on what you want. And then, and when they feel that during the transaction, they may work with you, but they won't refer to you. Because remember, what you did for them is not as important as how you made them feel. Make sense? You got a lot to think about and work with. You recorded it. I hope I was helpful. If you have any questions, email me and I will get back to you as soon as I can. It's a good week for me to do that, actually. So God bless and thank you, Paul.
Dennis, I can't thank you enough. Everybody, Dennis's information is there in the chat. Please, copy it, paste it somewhere so you've got it in case you do want to reach out or you want to follow him on social media or just check out his webpage. There's 2 web pages in there. So please do. I've known Dennis for a number of years now, since 2019. And so Dennis has helped me a lot with his philosophies and his teachings, and hopefully he creates a positive impact in your lives and your businesses right now, because there's so much truth in what he talked about this morning. And it's just wonderful. I've got 2 pages of notes myself. So Dennis, I can't thank you enough. And yeah, maybe I'll get with you this week too, because I want to talk to you about the one thing that came up during the Ninja installation back in 2019. I thought it was pretty phenomenal. And it was based on, like we're talking about, looking ahead 20, 30 years, you're laying in bed and your best you comes through the door. This was based on that letter we wrote to ourselves a year out. Amazing exercise, and how, it actually helped me manifest what I wanted to do. So, and maybe that'll be a lesson we bring in on another day, guys, but it's fantastic. This stuff really works. Everything is up here, and it's how we look at things, how we talk about things, and what we read, what we say. So again, Dennis, thank you so much. And anybody else have any last questions or last comments on anything before we go?
I don't think it's emails there. Dennis, thank you so much. That was so informative and very helpful, but I think we need his email.
You know what? Because I came from an email, so I didn't copy the address over.
It just put in Dennis, DENNIS at progresspartners.pro, PRO, Dennis at progresspartners.pro.
Great, thank you.
And guys, remember one thing, God wanted to put you here into this world unless you were made to do something great. So if anything else you're going to believe doesn't stick from some of the stuff we talked today, remember that last part. You're here for a reason. You don't need to find it, just be it.
There we go. Great words to finish on.
Excellent.
Dennis, thank you so much. Everybody, I appreciate all of
you.
Thanks for being here. We'll see you all next week.